So let me first introduce and call to make the introductory remarks Professor Kyung Lee, the Department Chair of Chemical and Biological Engineering. Kyung.
Thank you, Christos. Thank you all for coming, family, friends, colleagues. It's really moving to see you all here and to see again how much impact Miretta has had in many of our lives. I speak in front of a group of people for a living, but this is kind of hard. My wife also told me she's not in the audience, so I think we'll get away with this one. You say no jokes. So I'll try my best to set the clips aside. Before I get started, I want to thank a few people who are critical for putting together this event. I want to thank Ms. Margaret Pichao, our department manager, and Captain Murphy, who's also in the back, who paid attention to all the details to make sure that we can have the right venue and the right moments for Miretta. I also want to thank Christos, my co-host and colleague, for being to MC for no money whatsoever. I want to thank you too for your generous support and your kindness, especially for Miretta students and people that need support to make sure they can continue education. Thank you, gentlemen. And family and friends who made the effort to come here. I don't want to take too much of time from the other speakers, but I do want to say thank you to Paula Hammond, department head at MIT, for rescheduling your faculty meeting to allow your colleagues to come. I know it's not easy to reschedule events involving more than 2 faculty members, so I can see I have much to learn after many years as department chair. That was my last sort of lighthearted comment. I told my wife Sujan that I wouldn't do that. I think she just walked in, so she sympathized with her. So today you're going to hear from family and friends and colleagues. I count myself as all three. If you've been working with someone for so long, you know Miretta. I've been here 17 years, and I've known her longer, so thanks to Christos, I've probably known Miretta the longest. And you're going to hear different aspects of her life. I'll try to share a few stories of my own. It's not easy to distill all the wonderful moments I have to Miretta in a few words. I just try to pick out a few things that stand out to me. They make me smile when I think about those events and think of Miretta. And sort of as a very unique and special person that I will miss forever. So my first memory of Miretta is as a teacher and mentor to myself. I was a brand new assistant professor in fall of 2002. I've never taught a class before. It's one of the ironies of being a professor that you hire to do something you've never done before. And she took me under her wing, let me co-teach a class with her, undergraduate course in reactive design. She gave me her notes, her slides, problems she refined, some tough ones, some easy ones. And then just let me have all the materials she's put together for many years. I didn't even ask for them. And the only thing she expected from me is to be as successful as I can possibly be. And that hasn't really changed in the next 17 years or so. That's how Miretta was. She just wanted someone who works with her, she cares for, who's successful. And I think that's the part that I miss the most. And she was kind and warm and affectionate, but she could also be quite tough. And sometimes difficult to dissuade from certain things. So one moment that kind of sticks out to me is that I used to have a date written on the whiteboard of my office. It was August 31st, some year. It was supposed to be the day I can step down as chair. Hopefully I'll have this and my students and I used to joke about it. And actually, I have a former student at Gotham who used to actually also kind of look at the date and say, this is when you're going to go on sabbatical, we're going to start a company together. So one summer, early in the year, and I think this is the year before my term was supposed to end, Miretta was in office and talking about plans for the future for the department, hiring, and curricular development. And I mean, Miretta made some suggestions. I kind of want to sort of be cautious that, my term ends. I don't want to overcommit in terms of things that perhaps I want to be in charge of. Miretta just smiled at me and stood up and walked to the whiteboard. erased it, turned on to me and said, problem solved. And that's sort of the way I think she was, and I think that was an important lesson, that some of these things we think of, things we can't do, they're just constraints, and you can overcome them. I thought, just think boldly, work hard enough, and be passionate about something. And I think that's the kind of legacy I think that will leave for the rest of us. And that's, I smile, even the time, of course, so chagrined and disappointed. That was 5 years ago. So as you can see, she was right and I was wrong. I'm still here, doing the best I can. But people like me, so. I think that passion for trying to do things that people said she couldn't possibly do. She did so many things. I know outside the work area is what drove Miretta, and that's what I used to think. One of the reasons she's so accomplished as a scientist and scholar is it was not about personal glory for Miretta. I always thought it was about the science, which she put first, wanted to be the first to discover something, making it material for catalysis. But then over the last few years, I realized perhaps I was selling her short. It wasn't just about the science, it was about the people in her lives. I think it was about her friends, family. She's always talked about being centered because of her love for her family. So I know you would know this, I don't have to tell you, Nick, Alec, Greg, but I think you're very fortunate to have someone like that, be a wife and mother. I think of a better talent person than her. I think that's what made her truly special. One of the very last phone conversations I had with her, I think she was already a mass general. And of course I didn't know she would be kind of soon, so I didn't think too much of it. But we talked a lot about different things. And this is when she said, and it's, for her, it's always been about making sure that her students are successful that can be. I know she mentioned that, oh, by the way, this reminds me, I'm going to call them, make sure they do the experiments. So when she was ill, she would think about what she could do to further her students' training. And she always, and it was not because I think just about the science. It was really about making sure that they could be better people, have impact, and do good in their lives. And I think that's what we know is special. So Greg, you and Miretta have been and always will be my role models. And it's not because you're distinguished scholars, and teachers, and mentors, but also because I see the way you move your family into your work life and acted like that on an everyday basis. So it's been an honor and a privilege that Miretta is my colleague and my friend.
The next person is Dean Q, Dean of the School of Engineering.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate and remember Professor Maria Flanzani-Stantonopoulos. Among her colleagues, she is affectionately known as Miretta. Miretta is the world-renowned chemical engineer, a distinguished professor at Tufts, the director of the Nanocatalysis and Energy Lab, and the Robert Marcy Haber Endowed Professor at Tufts. She's also a beloved wife, friend, mentor, colleague, and probably the proudest role that she has, being a mother. Today, we are joined by her husband, Greg, and her children, Nick, Rona, and Alec. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to let you know how deeply sorry I am for your loss. Miretta is a terrific person, a wonderful friend, and a world-class scholar and colleague. Miretta has been a professor at Tufts for over 25 years. She was an intellectual giant in her own field, and her groundbreaking works have been recognized by numerous awards, including election to the National Academy of Engineers, the highest honor for the engineer in the United States. Miretta was always generous with her time and expertise, collaborating with colleagues and helping students reach their highest potential. She loved working with the next generation of engineers. She nurtured and mentored numerous students to fulfill their dreams and to make a difference in the world. Miretta touched the lives of many, many students and colleagues. To me, Miretta is more than a colleague. She has been a friend and a mentor. I turn to her when I need a sounding board. She had always provided me with wise and sensible advices. In fact, just about a month before her passing, I was in her office talking about strategies on recruiting the best faculty. We talked for more than an hour. She showed no sign of fatigue. I am deeply indebted to her for her generous support to me and to the School of Engineering. Miretta leaves an impressive legacy at Tufts. As I have said numerous times, her spirit is permanently imprinted on the School of Engineering and on our faculty. It's difficult to imagine the school without her. Let me close by thanking you all again for joining us today. And may we all remember the kindness, the passion, the dedication that Miretta has left for us, for the School of Engineering House. Thank you.
Next, I want to call on Nick Stephanopoulos, Miretta's elder son, who for some time now has been professor at the law school in Chicago, but recently moved to Harvard.
Thank you, Christo, and hello, everybody. So many of you knew our mom as a colleague, or mentor, or a teacher, or a friend. Alec, Rona, and I knew her in a somewhat different capacity, of course, as a mother. And it's about that side of her that I'd like to talk today. The qualities that made us love our mom, and some stories that illustrate those qualities. And my words today can't do justice to the remarkable and unforgettable woman that we were so lucky to have as our mom. But I hope it'll at least give a sense of why she was so special to us and why we miss her now so terribly. So to start, our mom was immensely warm and loving to her children. We never doubted that she loved us powerfully and absolutely under all circumstances and for all time. One way she expressed her love for us was physically. She always wanted to hug us, to hold us, to stroke our hair, to kiss our cheeks. My wife Ruth sometimes joked that our mom could never just say, "I love you," to her kids. She always had to show it through her touch, her feel, her physical warmth. Our mom's love for us also came through in her habit of trying to extend every interaction we had with her. So when we talked on the phone, she would always protract the goodbye. It was never "see you later," Nicolau or Rona. It was always "bye, I love you, kisses to you and your family, good night, kisses, good night, kisses, we'll talk again soon." Whenever we'd be at home in Winchester, from the minute we would arrive, she would ask if we could delay our flight back to Dallas or Chicago. She would volunteer to pay for the flight change, to call the airline, to ask about other options. And even when the time came to go to the airport, she would always bargain for a few more minutes with us. She would say traffic is light, you're sitting down at the airport waiting for your flight, so stay here and spend a few more minutes with your mom before going. Another important quality of our mom's was her expectation that we would succeed at the things we tried. People have heard of demanding Jewish mothers, of tiger moms. Our mom was cut from the same cloth, especially when it came to academic and professional advancement. All three kids remember showing our mom report cards that had lots of A's, but maybe an occasional A- or worse. And her response was always to ask, well, what happened in that class? Did you not study hard enough? Was there a problem with the teacher? And surely if we worked hard next time, the bad grade wouldn't repeat, right? That's what she would tell us. And of course, there was a good reason for our mom's high expectations for us, which is that she had even more demanding expectations for herself. Every morning when we were in Winchester, we would stumble out of bed at 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock. Our mom would always be awake before anyone else in the house, responding to emails from students, writing proposals for grants, or cooking or cleaning, while all the rest of us were still asleep. And at night, too, she would drive herself to finish one more task, one more recommendation letter for a student, one more review of some submitted paper, one more chore in the kitchen, before allowing herself to relax. So it's really no wonder that she pushed her kids to succeed, because if anything, the pushes she gave to us were gentle love taps compared to how she drove herself at all times. But her mom didn't just want us to be successful people, she also wanted us to be good people. And for her, an important part of being a good person was valuing one's family and heritage. And so with respect to family, our mom always tried to get us to stay in touch with one another and with a long list of relatives. So when we were in Winchester, she would often thrust a phone in our faces and say, here, call your cousin, your aunt, your godparent. I know they'd love to hear from you. When I looked through all my emails from her over the last few years, about half said something like, today is so-and-so's birthday or name day, and so make sure that you call them, they would love to hear from you. In addition to being the social glue of our family, our mom was the guardian of our Greek and Orthodox heritage. So she encouraged us to speak Greek, to read Greek books, and to visit Greece each summer. She couldn't have been happier with one of her children. My sister Rona ended up marrying a Greek man. And it was the same story with our mom's Orthodox faith. Every Sunday she would get us out of bed, dressed in nice clothes and off to church, even though we grumble that we would rather sleep a little longer. Over the years, our mom would get us to church earlier and earlier in the morning, to the point that we joked that we'd start arriving there before the priest had even gotten to the church. It's also entirely because of our mom that Ruth and I had an Orthodox wedding on my mom's home island of Sios. And that our baby daughter, Ileana, who we have heard a few minutes ago, making her presence known here, was churched in the Greek Orthodox Church this past summer. Without our mom's efforts to preserve our Orthodox customs, I think we would definitely have lost touch with them. So as you can tell from everything I've said, my mom was a woman of strong opinions. Some of those opinions were about big things, so academic and professional goals, staying in touch with family, remembering our Greek and our Orthodox roots. But our mom also had intense preferences about small things, about really everything under the sun. What we should wear, how we should comb our hair, what we should eat, how much of it we should eat, how to drive from one place to another, what lane to be in as we drove, and so on and so on. We would sometimes describe our mom as a relentless preference imposer. She had views on everything, and she expressed those views freely. She wanted the world, or at least her kids, to do what she thought was best. But I think it's important to note that these strong opinions were selfless, always selfless, not selfish. Our mom wanted the kids to do what she thought was best for them, never for herself. So we really shouldn't call her a relentless preference imposer. What she was a relentless altruistic preference imposer. Somebody who went around telling us what to do because, in her view, we'd be better off if we did what she said. The last quality I want to mention of our mom's is her optimism, her confidence that things would ultimately turn out okay. This positivity sometimes manifests itself in little ways, like her belief she would win any game she played with us. I remember playing Risk with her one recent Thanksgiving, I think in 2018. She was barely paying attention. She was falling asleep at the table. And so we asked her if she wanted to stop the game, but she said no. She knew what she was doing. She had us right where she wanted. She was actually right. The next turn, her armies multiplied. She eliminated first my brother, then me, and won the game in a single round. And her mom was also optimistic about more serious challenges like her health. So 2 years ago, even as she was slipping into a coma, as she fought a very severe infection in early 2018, she told us she would beat it, she would come out on top. And that time she did. She made a miraculous recovery and emerged unscathed from her ordeal in the hospital. And even in October of 2019, so right before her death, when she must have known that things were really dire, she sent us an email full of hope after trying a last-ditch therapy. The new drug, quote, went down like a charm, she told us. So we should, quote, have faith. Quote, faith and love will take you through everything, through all of life's adversities. Unfortunately, this was a case where all of the positivity in the world couldn't make a difference. But still, those words of our mom's in what ended up being the last email she would ever write to us are a beautiful summary of her approach to life. Faith and love did take her through everything, through all of life's adversities, as she wrote. And even when she finally reached a point where faith and love could no longer save her, she could still look back with satisfaction at a life lived with faith and love. And I think maybe that's the lesson to take from my mom's untimely passing. There has to come a time for all of us when optimism fails us. But until then, the best way to live is the way our mom did, with endless hope, even unrealistic hope, in what the future will bring. Thank you very much.
When
husband has a different route, so he has not been in academics but in business. So Alec, your turn for a few words.
Hi, everyone. And my apologies, I'm also the live streamer responsible, making sure the phone is staying up correctly. I think it says something about my mom, how many people were interested in this event, that there's actually people around the world watching as we speak. So I will keep this short because if that goes wrong, it's on me. But I wanted to share a few thoughts. I look around the room, I think I recognize about half of you. So again, for those that I don't know, I'm the middle child, Nick's younger brother, Rose's older brother. And Nick touched on a lot of the key points, but what I want to just quickly go over is, looking at the last few months that we've been without my mom, and I think what we really noticed there, because we could talk about the great achievements she had as a professor, how she was as a mother and so on growing up, but I think what we're all noticing, to be honest, the last few months is the giant void that she's left in many of our lives. And there are countless examples of this. I see my father weeks after saying, I feel useless. I can't cook, I can't clean, I can't do this, I can't do that. I don't know when anyone's birthday is. There are so many things my mother used to do that no one in our family did. She was a constant person reminding everyone, don't forget to wish somebody here a happy birthday, a happy name day. Don't forget that it's, and we're not talking about close relatives, we're talking about extended people that, I would barely even think, well, who is that? And it was something that was important to her. And, when you go to the holidays, something that, brought tears to my wife's eyes. Over Thanksgiving, she got up at 8 in the morning, which we thought was a reasonably early time over the holidays. And we see our 5.5-year-old son, and he was sitting alone in the family room, just kind of staring at the floor and saying, Mom, I'm hungry. And she said, well, why didn't you eat something? She said, well, every time I'm in this house, Grandma used to get up in the morning, and she'd be up, and she had prepared 7 or 8 things. And, no one had done it, no one had thought of it. And this is happening all the time now, and it's a constant reminder of what a special person she was. If she was taken from us far, far too soon, far too abruptly at the end. And the only thing I can say, trying to make this a positive, is that at least those 69 years, they were as full as one possibly could imagine. She, for those that don't know, you saw her in academic settings, you saw her while she was here. She was up as long as I can remember. So now, let's say, I'm 36, memory started 30 years. I think she would wake up between 4:45 and 5:30 a.m. every day. Didn't matter if it was vacation, where she was, and so on. And we would argue in a loving way, what are you doing? And she would be answering your emails. And she would be sending out edits to various students' papers. And she would be preparing, for example, our son's breakfast. Whatever it might be, she was always putting in hours. To be honest, maybe eventually that took a toll on her. But at least all of the time she was constantly awake, constantly up, doing things for everyone. At least, again, we can look back and say in the time she had, she did as much as she possibly could have for as many people. So that's how, and I'll close with this, when it's not just when we see that void, it also kind of reminds us of the responsibility we all have to fill that void. And, we see how many of us try to fill it, and it's still not enough. And that, to me, is the biggest reminder. When 5 or 6 or 7 people, when a family, an extended family, are trying to do what just one person was doing, and things still feel empty, things still feel unfinished, you really start to realize the mark that a person had on you and everyone around you. So, for passion, level of attention for all of you and for all of us, and I just hope when we sit back and think and remember her that we can live by her example and again try to fill that void as time goes on. So that's all. I'm going to get back to my filming and hope the phone didn't fall. But thank you all.
What I would like to do now is show you some slides about Miretta, and then we'll proceed We have 3 of the former graduate students speak, and 4 professional colleagues as well and close. But before I start, I want to have special thanks for people who came from other places. Thanks for the chemistry department at MIT, which is almost fully here, if not fully, at least half of it. Thanks for Bob Brown, come across the river from BU. We have a colleague from UMass. We have a dear lady from the University of Texas in San Antonio who came here, and we have a colleague from the University of Southern California who flew in this afternoon and who will fly back tonight. Thank you all for coming. Miretta was born in the land with the burst sunsets, where the definition of white and blue is the criterion for what white and blue is. She was born actually in Athens, but spent most of her young life in the island of Syros. The main city in Syros is Hermopolis, which is the city of Hermes. And you can see some pictures of it here. Later on, she spent some time in Cyprus. Her father was in the Greek military, and of course, she had to move around. Interestingly enough, in Cyprus, she enrolled into an all-boys school in order to get some advanced training in math, physics, and chemistry, and also to be prepared to live in a male-dominated world. So here are some pictures of her and her mother and father, and of course, if I give you a close-up, you can look at that young lady and indeed see the Miretta that you all know. She finished in high school for girls in Athens in 1968, and then entered the National Technical University, where she met the love of her life, classmates at the same year, Greg. Here is a picture of the undergraduate years. And of course, in 1973, she and Greg moved to the University of Florida for a master's degree, mostly because Greg's brother was a graduate student there, stayed only for the master's degree, and then moved to do the PhD in 1975 at the warmest city of this United States. That's where I did mine, and I know that indeed. Here's a picture of Greg and Miretta that you have not seen. Now you can look at this picture, and later on, when you talk with Greg, you can compare it. Professionally, when she graduated from MIT, Greg got an appointment at Caltech, and Miretta was involved as a researcher at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. When Greg moved to MIT, she moved with him and was involved with different faculty in different research activities, and then last but not least, joined the faculty here at MIT more than 25 years ago. Huh? Here is a photograph with the research group. We're going to hear from Yannis Valsamakis, one of the graduate students today. And here is a picture with Matt Bousser, who is also going to talk to us this afternoon. Here's a picture with Greg and Adel Sarofim. Adel Sarofim was a colleague at MIT who then moved to Utah, a very sweet Egyptian person that I had the privilege to meet and interact with myself. Here is taking an award from a very special society on metals. This is the, but yes, I'm not going to give you too much details about the award because that will take me until tomorrow morning. Quite a few other awards. This is not the only one. What's special about this award is for a society that is related to precious metals, and part of the last phase of Miretta's research had to do with working with monomolecular catalyst and an invention of her own, which really has made waves in the catalytic community. In 2014, she became a member of the National Academy of Engineering, but all that well done, But the most important thing for many of us, and especially for myself and my wife and many of our friends, she was the sweetest person that you could really find and to have among your company. Here are some pictures of some of the young men that you saw today. If you go backwards, Nick and Alex at the small age. Again, the two of them here. Here is with Nick and Alex again in Syros. Actually, even though Miretta was born in Athens, she thought, she considered Syros to be her home island. Here is with Rona, the third of the children, which unfortunately could not be with us today. Here with the three of them. Again with the three and Greg. With Nick in Cambridge, I believe that's in England, Nick, right? And with Alec at MIT when you finished the MBA, right? Here's with Rona's graduation at Boston College. With the first grandchild, Alex's son, Raphael. Here's Raphael more recently, a grown-up boy. He was in my house before Christmas and I engaged him to one of my granddaughters. I'm 5 and I need to work from now. And here is with a newborn, Ileana Maria, reading here a Greek children's book on the left. And of course, since you cannot see here, there, I have a different picture of her here. And Miretta, until the very last moment, was making all kinds of different plans about Ileana's baptism and where it's going to be. It's going to be in Syros and this and the other. She would never really reveal the difficulty that she had. She was very optimistic, and I have to say something about that a little bit later. Here is some other pictures. Lake Como, Bellagio. To some extent, Miretta, Greg, George, and Eleni, who are not with us today, Greg's brother, my wife, and many of the friends here, we had a very close-knit group of friends that met very, very regularly in different houses, engaged in different activities, both social and very often intellectual. Last time we all met was last October. It was Columbus weekend. We decided to rent a house in Lake Guanahasaki, and 10 of us met there. None of the 10, of course, 4 were very close friends. Miretta, Greg, George, and Eleni knew what's happening. The rest of us had no idea. We knew that there was a problem, but what kind of problem there was, we did not know. Despite the fact that she was in pain, despite the fact that she was aching, she came, she stayed most of the time in the house, but she did come to both dinners. Greg and George were telling here, well, listen, the friends are looking at you. We better tell them what's happening. Oh, she said, oh, yeah, I have pneumonia and I have a leg here. Everything will be fine. She did not let them tell us. We only learned the day before she passed away. He was a person who wanted, to some extent, not to enlist any sympathy for the position she was. It was a person, as Nick said, who always believed that she was able to overcome anything. This is a picture that we took on Columbus Monday morning as we were having breakfast and almost getting ready to go. You can see that she's sitting, but she's appearing quite weak. But let me tell you, Friday, before she got on the car to come, she made pasta flora in order to bring it for this breakfast that we had together. I think that I'm going to close with the following statement of George Gavalas, Professor Emeritus at Caltech. Amending my voice to the honor of Miretta's memory. I was her collaborator in projects at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and after she moved to Tufts, I followed her rapid rise in the catalysis research community. More than a colleague, Miretta was a friend, a noble and gracious Greek lady. Let me say that again, a noble and gracious Greek lady. I'm honored to have known her and to add my respects to her memory. Thank you. So let me move to the next segment in which I'm going to ask some of the former graduate students. Zileju.
Good afternoon. I was Miretta's recent graduate student. I have a few words to say, but before that, I would like to read remarks by George Giannakakis. He was Miretta's graduate student. He's still in the group, but he cannot attend today's event because of the visa issue. So this is his remarks. Dear fellow students, professors, and family members, I'm deeply sorry that I can't be with you on this important day. Miretta, her husband, and kids opened their home to me when I first joined Tufts, and have supported me throughout my years here. It pains me to not be there with you for such a solemn moment. I can only hope that these words reach you as they were intended, with a lot of love, support, and thankfulness towards all of you. There are no words to describe how grateful I am to Miretta and what she has done for me, but I will try. She gave me the chance to make my dreams come true. Come here and join this team of special people, all smart, hardworking, but also kind and supporting each other. She really knew how to pick a team and create a unique atmosphere. She taught us well, nurtured and inspired us to be better people and researchers. She ingrained in us the high ethics for science and research that she herself practiced. Make sure we would not cut any corners by practice with science, but practice with science, a true mentor. It is no wonder then that success would follow. Her exceptional work can't be measured by any simple metric. The numerous awards in highly cited papers in prestigious journals. It is, however, notably reflected in the dozens of researchers that have contacted us in recent months, either in conferences or via email, to give their condolence and share short stories of their time with her, how she helped them, taught them, or shared a laugh with them. I will not focus on her accomplishments. The results speak for themselves. What I would like to emphasize, though, is how she never mentioned to us any new awards or distinctions. Instead, we always had to find out from someone else. I think I speak for everyone when I say that she was not only our academic mom, but even more the parent away from home. A person that leaves their home to pursue a degree in a foreign country needs a lot of support. And she knew very well how to make this happen. She was there to support us with every health issue that we had, but also to celebrate every special moments of ours, such as marriages, newborn babies. One of the few things that would get her attention from research was current or former student visiting her with their child or with news of other kids. And you could not stop her when she would share beautiful stories for her kids, as well as her grandkids, showing photos of Rafa and Gold. The lab outings was something special, but at the moments where she leaves science behind and wanted to hear about us. About our families, our significant others, our dreams. She would laugh, she would tease, she would advise. The most special highlight was the past Easter at her place. She was warm and kind as always, a true Greek hostess. Not like anyone even take care of their dishes. Together with Greg, she gave us a feeling of how Greek Easter feels like. Shared stories, and gave us memories we will never forget. Dear Miretta, I wish more than anything that you were here, that we still had our meetings and enjoy more great memories and conferences and in life. I feel that you wouldn't want us to lose focus, but rather take care of ourselves and continue doing good work. And this is what we can promise you. And we will do our best to honor your legacy and spread your work. We will never forget how much you have given us, and we deeply thank you for everything. Last, finally, I hope that you will find not just courage, but the passion to continue working for our goals and maintain warm families and raise great kids, like her parents did with you. May her soul rest in peace. This is George's remarks. I also have a few words to say. Like I mentioned, I was Miretta's recent graduate student. I first met Miretta about 1 year before I joined Tufts. At that time, as a newcomer to catalysis research, I wanted to learn about her interests in taking a new PhD student. So I came to visit Tufts and tried to talk to her, although she did not know me at all. On that morning, I knocked on the door of Miretta's office and didn't expect anything more than a brief conversation. But to my surprise, she spent quite some time introducing her research to me and listening to me talking about my background. She even invited me to her group meeting. After that very interesting and 2.5-hour long meeting, I knew I belonged to this place. And the pizzas tasted really good. This was the Miretta that I knew from that point on, who was warm and supportive. After joining the chemical and biological engineering department, my initial exposure to Miretta was in her kinetics and reaction engineering course. In her classes, you would never be bored because you would always be challenged. You would be challenged by the breadth and depth of the course material discussed in each class, and the homework assignments that you could develop a short research paper about almost each problem. Around term, we were given 2 weeks to write a report, critically reviewing the paper that was used in the qualification exam the year before. For freshman graduate student, they were difficult, but surely feasible because Miretta will always make sure we have enough support to go through those challenges. At the end of it, this was the course benefits my research the most among all the courses I've ever taken. Unlike the majority of students that took the course, I was among the lucky ones that got to be as advisee. Not surprised at all, as her PhD student, I was very much challenged and very well supported. During the years, what struck me the most was that she was a truly role model for us. Not only because of her deep love for her research and her work ethic, but also her courage, as she always tried to study the most difficult problems in the field. Miretta has also provided tremendous support to me and my family through the years. One of them was when I was near completion of my time at Tufts and trying to find a research job. Miretta was extremely generous with her time during that year, despite always being extremely busy. devoted hours upon hours discussing the ins and outs of potential opportunities, and generously provided the connections she had that I could contact. And she really helped me to transit to the next step of my research career. To my wife, who was also a graduate student of chemical and biological engineering department, Miretta was always available whenever she sought advices in school and life. For my 4-year-old daughter, one of her favorite stuffed animals was a little jungle that Miretta gave to her. This jungle accompanied my daughter in her bed in many evenings. Miretta, I miss you. After leaving Miretta's group, her students, postdocs, and visiting scholars have kept frequent contacts with her and with each other. I know that for many of us, Miretta was not just well-liked and highly regarded, and she was beloved. We'll remember Miretta in her life. I think if she's remembered, she's not gone. Thank you.
The next former graduate student is Matt Boucher.
It is with a heavy heart that I am here today, but it is also with great honor and privilege. Professor Stephanopoulos has touched many lives in many ways, as we have heard from our speakers today. To me, she was a mentor, a brilliant mind, a teacher, a fearless leader, and a kind heart. She was my doctoral advisor for almost 5 years. Professor Stephanopoulos has taught me so many things and shaped the engineer that I am today. To share the entirety of her impact on my life in just 5 minutes would be impossible. I'd like to share with you some memories and lessons that are most important to me and that I think she would want everyone to hear. I'll never forget my first visit to Tufts and meeting Professor Stephanopoulos. She was so excited to give me a tour of the labs and to discuss her research topics. She told me that it was our responsibility as scientists and engineers to provide greener, more environmentally conscious options through our research, whether they seemed practical at the time or not. Before I left that day, and so many times thereafter, she asked me, if not you, then who? That question has stuck with me over time and is a constant source of reflection in my life. I knew after that day that I wanted to be at Tufts working for Professor Stephanopoulos. Being a student in Professor Stephanopoulos' group was hard work. She challenged us to do more with less, to make more efficient catalysts with just a tiny fraction of the high-cost material used in state-of-the-art, but with the same performance. But she never expected of her students what she did not expect of herself. Nobody worked harder than Professor Stephanopoulos. On Saturdays, it was always a good bet that her Honda Prius hybrid would be in the parking lot at Tufts Science and Technology Center. Through her tireless efforts and her brilliance, Professor Stephanopoulos demonstrated to the scientific community that just a single atom can change the way we operate our vehicles, the way we make chemicals, and the way we clean our air. And she shared this scientific journey and success with her students. I am one of the many students who took this journey with Professor Stephanopoulos. I was able to reach out to some of her former students and ask them to share some of their memories. The feedback was resounding. Thoughts such as, she always believed in her students. She never lost touch after graduation and always checked in. She showed me that humanity and a deep sense of purpose should always be at the center of why we do what we do. These memories from her students exemplify the kind of person and professor she was. In recent months, I was not aware that Professor Stephanopoulos had grown ill. I am sorrowful that I was not able to reach out and tell her how I felt. If I had the chance, I would tell her that I would not be where I am today without her, that her lessons and values helped guide me every day, and that I will never forget her. I know her legacy will live on in part through her students, guiding us to work diligently, to think boldly and creatively, to keep in the forefront of our minds the environmental impact of our work, and to have integrity. I hope that we, her students, can pass on what we've learned from Professor Stephanopoulos to the next generation of scientists and engineers. If not us, then who? Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is very hard for me to do, so bear with me. I'm not the greatest public speaker, and so even though I'm very happy to see a lot of my academic family here, people that I haven't seen in so many years, the circumstances are really, heavy for me. So when Professor Lee reached out a couple of weeks ago, asking me whether I'd be interested in talking to this memorial service, I was nervous and terrified. I wanted to make sure that I could find the right words to properly honor Miretta's memory and to pay my respects. But at the same time, I was very thankful to be given this opportunity to publicly express my gratitude for everything that she's done for us, for me, and for so many others, as you've heard already. She's been instrumental for our growth, professional, but most importantly, personal growth. When I was trying to prepare for this presentation, I was revisiting all of my memories from my years at Tufts. And believe me, I'm probably one of her students that stayed a lot of years at Tufts. I loved it. I was, really struck by the conversation that I had with her. It was the last conversation, unfortunately, that I've had with her last April. We ran into each other during the Greek Independence Parade in Boston. And, she was very excited. I had my son by my side, and she was so joyous to see him and asked him how he was doing, how much he's grown. And what really stayed with me were her last words, were very typical. She had told them to me before, but now they have a very different weight and importance. She said to me, Yanni, come and visit us more often, meaning Tufts and the lab. Don't forget us, we've missed you. And for those who know her, those were words that really highlighted, in a subtle way, how much she truly cared about all of her students. She continuously strived and, in assisting us and supporting us to realize the best versions of ourselves and all of our goals, and many, many people have said that already. And that was even well after we were no longer part of the group. And Matt just said that, she made a conscious effort to always keep us engaged, to ask how we're doing, to bring us back, to introduce us to our new students. She was very proud of her academic family, and she really took care of all of her academic children. I am very grateful for her patience. I recall when I was very starstruck when she first called me and told me that, I'd be admitted in the program, that I'd be working with her. And then when I first came, I was very intimidated being, in that group meeting, as everybody has mentioned. She was very passionate about what she did. And that passion, exuded. And it was intimidating to be in her presence, because she was really brilliant. But at the same time, I remember that first year, having joined her lab with no prior lab experience, how many endless meetings she spent, with me, the times that she put aside, out of her busy schedule to just sit down and help me, become more proficient, more independent, to allow me to, evolve and become, the research that she thought and she had seen in me, the researcher. I feel truly fortunate to have had her as a teacher, an academic advisor, mentor, and definitely as a role model. As many people have said, her work ethic was second to none. She set the bar really high for herself and for all of us. And leading by example, she really showed all of us the importance of perseverance, of hard work, and of passion in what you do. Working by her side was imposing and intimidating, as I said, but at the same time it was very fulfilling and it was very gratifying. I really obviously admired her for everything that she had accomplished. Her accolades and awards speak for themselves, for the quality of a researcher, an engineer, a scientist she was. But what really was always amazed me and I admired was that despite of all of her success, she was always poised, humble, generous, and kind. I remember, I think, Chile through George's words that during our first year, and this is something that she repeatedly did year after year, she opened her home and she welcomed all of her students into her family to celebrate, Easter and Thanksgiving. She made sure that we had a home away from home, and we felt welcomed. She's been instrumental for me. She's been extremely helpful. I remember how after I graduated, I finished my PhD, and I was wondering what my next steps would be. She had a meeting with me without me even asking for it, where she offered, to maybe extend the contract as a researcher for a year, trying to figure out how, what will I do, what my next steps would be. And then in that same period, she was the one to put me in touch with Professor Farrell, and I'm sure her recommendation was instrumental and key for me to getting the appointment at Columbia University. She, I have, very many instances in which she showed her kindness and generosity in her teachings, in her support, in her mentorship. I cannot fit those in 5 minutes, obviously, but, what she's done to me, I don't think I'm an exception to the rule. I think what she's done for me, she's done for every single student of hers. And the fact that everybody that is here to honor her is a testament of, her accomplishment in that sense, to keep this academic family very close together. So I would like to close by saying, dear Miretta, I'm going to say it in Greek, ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ από τα βάθη της καρδιάς μου για όλα όσα έκανες για μένα. I would like to thank her from the bottom of my heart for everything that she's done. She will be missed dearly, but as many have said, her memory will live, so it will be easier for all of us. Thank you so much.
Getting orders from my wife. Let me show the picture. So let's move on. I'd like to call on Paula Hammond, Department Head at MIT.
really honored to have the chance to talk about Miretta today. Miretta was actually one of the first 2 women I'd ever associated with MIT Chemical Engineering as a senior researcher when we first met in the early 90s, because I was a graduate student at that time, transitioning through a postdoc to become a faculty member. And she was present and essentially gave me a sense of confidence, because she exuded this confidence when I would run into her in the hallways, in the elevators. She knew that I was going to become faculty at MIT. She asked me how I was doing. She asked me about my postdoc, even as she was preparing to leave and launch her own career. And I felt that even at that early time, she provided a presence in the MIT community. She was strong. She was not someone who was an easy yielder. She was present, she was engaged, and she was passionate. And that was something that you felt even wandering through the halls and running into her and having those conversations. But when she moved on to Tufts, she actually became this incredible rising star. And although we suffered a little bit from losing Miretta's presence in our department, the world gained from the significant contributions that she gave in the field of catalysis. But more importantly, the chemical engineering community as a whole, and certainly this local university area, gained an important mentor and leader who represented the ideal balance of consistent and persistent mentoring and support for students, the pursuit of excellence and important scientific questions, and the maintenance and balance brought in her partnership with Greg to raise this beautiful family and enjoy the many most important aspects of life. And this last aspect perhaps is something I greatly appreciate as someone who was raising a young family myself, seeing someone like Miretta, seeing Miretta being able to be poised and to be engaged and to be passionate, but to also raise a family and love and enjoy all of the things that having a family brought was something that was incredibly important and was not prevalent. So I greatly appreciate the fact that she went to an all-boys school. Yes. So that I could see how she handled her own life, navigating as a faculty member and ultimately a National Academy of Engineering member. She was truly an icon in that sense. Maria is particularly known for several things, including her support of faculty colleagues, especially young colleagues and many women. Her leadership, both within her specific area and across fields. She was an important voice, in particular within the ICHE and in the National Academy. She was thoughtful and insightful and provided her thoughts and support of efforts generously. She had an ability to inspire others, especially those students and postdocs whom she mentored and whom we've heard so much from so far. She also mentored many graduate students on committees, thesis committees, at meetings, at events, even at poster sessions, and in particular for a number of all students, but also a number of women students. She greatly admired and appreciated Miretta because she was not only incredibly accomplished, but she was also incredibly accessible. She was humble, she was approachable, and you could bring problems to her, and she was very direct about her advice and very practical about it. Miretta was an important part of our MIT department's community, and you see so many of us here in this audience. Although she moved to Tufts, she never really left our circle of faculty and colleagues in chemical engineering. She attended department events along with Greg, celebrated our special moments with us, cheered for our success, and was always a supportive voice. I speak for many from our department when I say that she was a true and important part of our family. The brilliant smile and warmth that she brought to every event and moment that she shared with us, her clever and intelligent input and insight given to members of our faculty as they grew and established their labs, and Maria's willingness to provide her thoughtful perspectives to faculty and colleagues on numerous topics, key to our department, are all a part of her legacy as well. We so love and miss Miretta. She will always be a part of the MIT Chemie community, as she is a part of the greater engineering field. Greg, I know that someone like Miretta is an incredible gift, and I know what it's like to lose a gift like that. But I want to say that being able to treasure everything that you had from that gift is something that will reward you throughout the rest of your life. This gift from you and your family, the Stephanopoulos family, is an incredible one, and I want to thank you for sharing Miretta with us and the rest of the world. Thank you so much.
Now I call on Bill Momau, professor at the Tufts Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy.
Some of you may wonder how a professor of law and diplomacy would be on this dais with all of the chemical engineers and others. I'll explain. Being a colleague of Miretta's was a privilege and a delight. She brimmed over with ideas as the outstanding academic that she was. But more than that, her kindness and warmth were unparalleled. She could brighten even the most desultory committee meetings with her engaging smile and sparkling eyes, which is where I met her when I was trying to start something called the Tufts Institute of the Environment here. And we discovered we both had a common interest in the environment, and particularly in the energy consequences for the environment and the opportunities to change that. Although she was a chemical engineer and I was a physical chemist, from MIT, by the way, that's where I got my degree. So we had something in common right away, I guess. That it had shifted from doing laboratory science to developing science-based solutions to global issues like climate change. That's how I ended up at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, the only chemist at the Law School of Law and Diplomacy, I want you to know. It was not long after we met that we combined our interests in a jointly taught course in clean energy technology and policy, which we did for 12 years until I retired. There was no question about Miretta's insights and systemic understanding of energy systems, even when she worked on them at the nano level of catalysis. She had a comprehensive view and understanding. As a colleague, she was the light on the hill, if I may use a phrase that's common around here, as far as seeing beyond the obvious folly of digging up the earth and spewing pollution and climate-altering emissions into the atmosphere. And she was going to find the technologies that would change that. Her scientific and technical insights were duly recognized by the many national and international awards that she received. At Tufts, as you've heard here, she was also recognized for her teaching and her mentoring that I had the privilege of seeing every time we taught a class together. And let me just make an editorial aside here. I think that one of the things that is most underappreciated by universities, they value research, number one, in some places maybe some teaching. I don't know of any university that when they evaluate faculty, evaluate their role as mentors. And the thing is that whether Miretta was, look, we had this mixed class of policy, Fletcher International interest students and engineers. And whether it was a policy student who was terribly confused about entropy and the second law limitations on the efficiency of energy transformation from heat to work, or a difficult problem set that we gave them, or whether it was an engineering student who was absolutely baffled at the world of diplomacy and policy making, she was always there to help them see that relevance of each to the other. The payoff is clear whenever a policy student, former policy student, would return and seek us out, proclaiming that those frustrating problem sets clinched the wonderful position they had just achieved. Or the engineering grad recounting how she had successfully testified before a committee of the state legislature or the U.S. Congress. The leading research teacher and mentor, she fully understood that mentoring students to become thought leaders was every bit as important as creating new knowledge through her research. There was every reason that Miretta was designated a Tufts University Distinguished Professor. Let me just share a personal vignette. One year, I got up, I was feeling terrible. This was not the course we taught together. I had to teach this other course. I said, well, I'll go in and then I'll go over to Harvard Vanguard over here and see what's wrong with me. I became delirious. I must have been babbling incoherently, and I collapsed in front of the class. I was taken to the hospital, and a day later, Miretta was there by my bedside. And then I saw a side of her that I had never seen before. She demanded that I hand over the papers I had smuggled into the hospital, hoping I could grade them. And she took them from me, and she taught the rest of the class by herself, including grading all those papers. I was very relieved and am still eternally grateful. Over the years, we became friends as well as colleagues. Miretta had so much more to offer when she was struck down in October. To Greg, and to both of you boys who are her sons, and to her sister who's not here, we all mourn her death, so we should take this time to celebrate a wonderful and remarkable person. A great life, well lived. Maria Crisanti Stephanopoulos.
By the powers bestowed on me to be the MC, I'm going to have a modification of the program, and I'm going to call Yanis Yortos, Dean of Engineering, University of Southern California, as the person who came from LA this afternoon and is leaving at 8:30, a classmate of Miretta's in undergraduate school, to say a few words.
Good morning. My name is Yanis Yortos. I have been at USC, which is on the other side of the continent. I just came here today just for this event, and actually I'm going back and catching the flight at 8 o'clock, so I may have to leave right after this. I was not prepared to speak. Christos asked me to do that. I wanted to speak because Miretta was a very special person. She was a chemical engineer, graduate student, undergraduate student, when we were enrolled in 1968. That tells you how old we are. In Athens. I remember the order by which the various students were admitted to the university. The number one person was Kostas Vaginas, who was a professor at University of Patras. She was actually at MIT for a while. The second person was Miretta. Miretta was actually in the order of admission. Third was myself. Grigori was in the top 6. The very interesting thing about that particular class was that 4 of the 40 members of that class became members of the National Academy of Engineering, which is an outstanding record for a class of engineering students in Greece in 1968 for chemical engineering. I remember the warmth, the sweetness of Miretta. When we applied to come to the United States as graduate students, and I will limit my remarks in that period of time, in order not to compete against each other, we divided the United States into 4 quadrants. So we said, you're going to apply here, we're going to apply here, to make sure we don't compete against each other. Grigori and Miretta chose Florida, as Christos mentioned very well. The rest of us, decided, we're allotted various parts. Mine was California, which was like, I had no idea what California was at the time. There was no internet. We just simply, read the books. I was admitted at Caltech, which was California Institute of Technology. I had no idea what the university was like. I said, Institute of Technology sounds like Massachusetts Institute of Technology, so it must be a good university. So, the world was so nonlinear and unpredictable. Gregorius ended up actually at Caltech for maybe 3-4 years, if I remember well, Gregorius, as a professor there, and Miretta came in and worked at JPL. At that time, I was at USC, where I'm still for a long, long time. I did not know Miretta's illness. I remember that someone mentioned to me back in 2017, actually was the last time I saw Miretta, when she came to the National Academy meeting, and to celebrate actually the induction of our friend Kostas Valianas. Gregorius was there, actually had pictures, we had dinner together. It was a wonderful, wonderful event, and she looked actually very, very good and very solid as usual, sweet, wonderful person. She would, even though our paths parted their ways, she was always considerate, always friendly, always all the adjectives that her son mentioned were there, including the way that she actually behaved to us. Friends and colleagues, she always would tell us things that we needed to do as well. When I learned from Christos back in October that she passed away, it was like a part of us actually took on with Miretta. Actually, Miretta, we lost a part of us, a part of our own, and I think that's why I felt it was important for me to come in here and share this with you, and also try to tell you how much we lost in her, and the important role that she played in our world, in our development. It's an honor for me to be here, and I would have never missed this opportunity to come in and pay homage to her presence in life and all the impact that she had. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Charlie Sykes from the chemistry department.
Thank you, Christos. My name is Charlie Sykes. I've been in chemistry here for about 15 years now, and the last 12 years I've had the pleasure and honor of working very closely with Miretta and her group. So this collaboration started when my group, which is the physical chemistry group, which works in ultra-high vacuum, like outer space, like minus 250 Celsius, came up with this sort of random idea for a catalyst and went to Maria and said, "Look, can you make this type of thing?" And most chemical engineers who are, presented by really fundamental results on simple crystal and ultra-high vacuum just say, "Stop wasting my time." But Maria was very interested, and we discussed it a lot and devoted her time, her students' time. And over the last sort of 12 years, we've developed sort of a new line of those catalysts called C11 alloy catalyst. So I've always been there. This has been the most exciting collaboration I've ever been involved in through Maria's sort of given a chance to this random idea and just the sheer energy she had. And I really respect her sort of chemical intuition, where when she thinks about a problem, you can see she has all the atoms in her mind and she's moving them around, and she really understands how all these different atoms interact in such a surreal way that even a supercomputer couldn't do that type of modeling these days. So this has really been a wonderful thing to be involved in with her. And her work actually started the whole area of single atom catalysis. This is the term of right around 2000. Some of her early papers really started that area. And there's now conferences you can go to where the whole topic is single atom catalysis, and that really started in Maria's lab, so her work lives on all around the world. The only positive thing I see coming from her passing is it's actually watching her students and working with her current students, and rather than sort of throw their hands up and sort of disappear and stuff, they've sort of doubled their efforts in the lab to work, and they want to continue her legacy to produce their data, publish their papers, and move on in this field. And I think Maria would be incredibly proud of her current students, the way that they've coped with this massive loss and how they're moving forward. And my sort of final remark is Maria's probably looking down on all of us now and sort of say, what are you guys moping about? Get back to your office, get back to the lab, get watch your courses. So she's left, like Alex said, an enormous void in so many people's lives in her field and here at Tufts as well. So we miss you a lot, Maria.
Our last remarks come from Professor Iakovos Vassavos at the University of Thessaloniki, a fellow researcher in the catalysis area.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have all gathered together tonight to pay respect and pay a tribute to a great person, Miretta, a colleague and friend. In fact, it has been about 3.5 months ago when one night in a Yorgaitis called me and my wife to tell me and Eva that Miretta left. And my wife says, what do you mean she left? We were really shocked. We could not really recover. Based on our Christian faith, we prayed and we put some hymns for the occasion for about 3 hours and we recovered. What makes Miretta such a special person? Miretta really was a person with rare ingenuity. In addition to that, though, she had virtues, human qualities, which are humility, kindness, simplicity, and most important, compassion. Her optimism was really running through her entire life, and I will mention 2 examples of that. In 2007, Gregory and Miretta participated in a conference in the island of Sifnos on catalysis. After a week-long catalysis sessions, we were ready to grab the boat to return to Athens. Here was what Gregory and Miretta were living, and the boat was in the other island, part of the island. We had to go up in the mountain and come down. No taxis they could find. So Miretta called me and says, Iakovos, you have to find a taxi. I tried, so I will come with you. The problem is that they had a small Fiat. So I go to pick up Gregory and Miretta, and 3 other guys show up. And none of the guys was 250 pounds. My words. Going up in the mountain, the car was easy. Coming down, I was really scared from the brakes. And Miretta from behind the seat was saying, yeah, because everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. And believe me, I was able to push the car till the end and they made the ferry. And more recently, as a friend, when we came to Boston in 2016, we had a chance to communicate more frequently with Gregory and Miretta. And we have our share of problems, her problems, everybody else. Miretta was really a very optimistic person. We were going to the doctors, and I was telling her what's going on. Saying, no, you have to go and tear down the doors of the doctor and try to impress them. And that's what we did. And really, through this time, I realized how much compassion Miretta had for the others. But beyond that, though, what I would like to say a few words is that as a colleague, chemical engineering, from University of Thessaloniki, and also Miretta was a member of the Hellenic Catalyst Society. We had the privilege to listen to her lectures, and we realized that her work made a permanent impact in catalysis. And this is shown not only by her reduction in the national mechanical engineering, but also with worldwide recognition. Miretta and the other speakers also mentioned that was a person who was really interested for the societal needs. Her research here about sustainability, about clean energy, about diversification of energy sources, always under the auspices of catalysis. The other speakers mentioned quite a few accomplishments, and it is not necessary to mention them, I stop again here. But in spite of that, just as a single title, what impressed me was really her work on specifically this technology can be very important for monetizing remote natural gas reserves instead of letting them. But as the previous speaker said, the most outstanding contribution of her, she pioneered work in single-site catalysis and feel that she and her co-workers, and we heard one of them before, open up. The excellent science in the synthesis and characterization of such tailor-made catalytic surfaces with atomic scale precision is a big step towards understanding fundamental phenomena. Miretta's contribution to this is really priceless. Why? Because by having single atom catalysis, either metallic or bimetallic, you really are able to promote a series of reactions which are really saving today the environment. We're talking about either this sea oxidation or the water safe reaction, or most important, the alcohol dehydration producing olefins and then leading the way to the aviation fuels. In all these things, I believe, have leading us to conclude that her accomplishment left in her profession a legacy. And the younger generation, we heard it today, will cherish to follow as an example. For us, Miretta also will be remembered for her unconditional and unlimited compassion to others. Her kind and sincere support will instill optimism in all. To her family, my wife, and I express our love and sympathy, and we assure them that her memory will live with us forever.
We have reached the end of the program, and I think there is a reception for you. Please stay around, have something to nibble or to drink, and talk to different people.